Let me guess, you're in debt, right? So what? So was I. And so was Dan, and so are a lot of people out there just like us. So Dan and I come to you with our channel, Pay Down Debt Solutions. So welcome to all of you that are new and maybe have not seen us before or seen our way of banking before. So on this channel, what we do is we teach you how to become debt-free using a strategy called velocity banking. Let's face it, guys, the banks use us. They use us to enrich themselves, don't they? And of course they do, because they're a business, and that's what businesses do. They, provide a service, right, or a product, and they make money off of it. Well, that's fine, and banks should make money, but they don't need to make as much off of us as they are. They are rich enough as far as I'm concerned, and I think you agree with me. So I'm going to teach you to use the banks just like they are using us. But we're going to do things a little bit different. We are going to use a different strategy than the traditional banking system that many of you are in. So today, what I want to go over with you is where there is a will, there is a way to be debt-free, okay? So as long as you want to be debt-free, as long as you can use this, right, you will be debt-free. But it takes a little bit of work. You guys, you can't just wish it away, right? So stop wishing and begin willing. So if you break it down, you will debt freedom into existence with purpose and intention. You can't just sit back and hope to be debt free, to continue on doing what you're doing today, knowing that someday in the future you'll be debt free, so long as, nothing catastrophic happens in your life, and I hope nothing does. But life has a way of having things happen, and maybe it won't be a catastrophic thing that happens to you, but maybe it'll be something like a car repair, or a appliance that you weren't intending to buy, but then you find yourself in a position where you need to. So little things like that can derail the best plans out there and the best of intentions until you learn a different way to run your banking, okay? So what is it when I say will it into existence with purpose and intention? What the heck am I talking about? Well, what I'm saying is create a plan. You guys have to have a plan. You have to have the will, the fortitude to get it done, right? So will is simply a command. It's your mindset and your perseverance, okay? That is your will. When I talk about purpose, I'm talking about your why. What is your why? Your why is that you want to get out of debt. So how are you going to do it? Are you going to continue doing the same thing you've been doing over and over and over again? And, expecting a different result, which is what they say, the definition of insanity, right? They say that. Seems to me like it could be true. Or, and then intention, how, okay? How are you going to get out of debt? What is your plan? What is your plan to debt freedom? We offer you guys a part of a plan here. We offer you our 3-step strategy, okay, within Velocity Banking, and that is to organize, identify, and implement. That is the way through debt. That's how you do it, okay? But again, your mindset is your reality. So the mindset that you are in currently, if you think you are poor because of your payments, then you are, right? If you think that. If you think that you are poor because of the banks holding you back because of making payments, then you are. So flip that on its head, you guys, and you take control and learn a different way through lines of credit. So your lifeline to debt freedom is a line of credit. And I'm going to show you that today in a couple different ways. I'm going to take a strategy here with a student of ours, and I'm going to manipulate it in 3 different ways for you so you can see what options you have out there, because you do have options. When it comes to Velocity Banking and when it comes to Pay Down Debt Solutions, we offer you guys solutions for your debt problem. It doesn't necessarily mean that you have to go out and get something new. It could be that, okay? It could be that because a lot of times those newer products out there are more advantageous to you, but it could be working with your current credit card that you have. And that credit card can help you work down debt, okay? So using lines of credit to your advantage a different way than the way you've been running them, the way you've been using them, is going to change your life. If you just open your mind, right? You change your mindset a little bit. And I want you to see how traditional banking looks versus our lines of credit, using lines of credit. So that's what we're going to do today. We are going to show this student scenario here with running it with different lines of credit, and I want to show you a better way, a faster way through, okay? So if we take a look at our situation here with our student, they have an income of $64.95. They have total expenses of $63.40, which means they have about $155 in cash flow. So they need a little bit of help, okay? They do need some help. Their mortgage is for $91,400. It is at a the payment is $631, okay, so $631 a month. Their interest rate, they had a 6.3% interest rate, and they have 22 years left to pay on that, so they're about 8 years in. So their interest, when they pay this off, they will have paid $92,640. Now, they've already paid about $32,000 in interest, okay, in the time frame in this 8 years. They've already paid $32,000 in interest. So the total amount is $125 something that they are going to pay in interest for this mortgage. Now, they also have a home equity loan, okay? So they've taken a home equity loan, a second mortgage on top of this. And that home equity loan is for $32,611. Always a line, never a loan. We're about to remedy this. Okay, so we have $693 payment on that. Check this out. The home equity loan is actually more than their mortgage. And so that home equity loan is at a 7.6%. They have about 4.6 years left to pay on that. They are going to pay another $6,478 once that is complete, okay? So we have a car payment. This car payment, and this purple stuff here, I just subtotaled it for you. I subtotaled the loans, the home loans here at $99,118. And then their payment for these two is $1,324, and I'll just double check my math on that. Okay, so car payment, right? So they have a car, and what's left on the car is $8,320. The payment is $439. It's at a 5.5% interest rate. They have about 2 years and 8 months left. And what they have left in interest will be $442. So they've already paid considerable interest on that. I believe that's a 5-year loan. I believe it is. Okay, so Discover. So they have a Discover card. The balance on that is $6,210. $180 is their payment, 27% interest rate, and they have about 5.8 years to term that out. So to pay this off at this payment at 27%, it's going to be 5.8 years. That's $5,902 in interest that they will pay. They also have a Citi card out here. It's for $5,840. They have a payment of $175. That is at a 24%. It would take 4.8 years to pay that off, to term it out, and it's going to cost them $3,880 at this point to pay that. So if you look at our totals here, I've totaled just these three. That's $10,224, and then I've totaled the $99,118 for you. And I've done that specifically because we're going to use different options today. We're going to run different strategies. We're going to use different tools, okay? So I wanted to split that out for you a little bit. So these three here, again, would be $20,370. The payment on that is $794 on just the debts. That's not including their living expenses, okay? These are just the debt payments. So again, and if I total these up, that's 90, it's like 103 or so, $104, okay, in loan debt, okay? So today I want to show you guys different strategy using lines of credit, the Velocity way, through paydown, the paydown way, right? The Velocity Banking, the paydown way. And I want to show you what your options are, because the beautiful thing about Velocity Banking and about paydown is that we give you choices, right? We give you choices. It's up to you to make those changes, but we will always offer you the faster way with more interest saved. That's what we offer you, and that's what we want to show you. So I'm going to erase this board, and I'm going to show you a few different ways to run this Velocity Banking strategy. All right, and as promised, I am back with some numbers now on the board for you, where we're going to talk about lines of credit and how lines of credit can change your entire life and your trajectory with your debt. So the debts that you have right now, get ready to wipe them out, you guys, because we're going to show you a couple different ways to do that. So again, with our student scenario here, they have an income of $64.95. They have total expenses of $63.40. We've gone through some of the debts here that we are going to attack. Now, I'm going to use, in my example today for you, I'm going to use a home equity line of credit, the second lien home equity line of credit. I'm also going to show you a first lien home equity line of credit, which envelops your mortgage into it. Okay, so we're going to go over that as well. For those of you that want to get rid of a mortgage, this is one phenomenal way to do it. Yes, you can do chunk downs with that home equity line of credit and take care of your mortgage that way, but this is a really great, viable, quick way to take care of a mortgage as well. And then, as always, I always bring credit cards to you and have you guys use credit cards to work down your debt, because many of you, that is what you have, and you don't have the option for other things. Many of you out there are maxed out on, lines of credit, okay? Home equity lines of credit, some of you, personal lines of credit, you're maxed out on credit cards, and that's okay. We can still do these scenarios if you find yourself in that boat. We can absolutely do it. So let's start today with our lines of credit, and let me go over their situation here, okay? So in this scenario, I'll tell you later what they ended up doing, but we did have options, right? And so their options are, they have a nice credit score. Their credit score is, it helps them out. They do have some expenses, living expenses that are around $1,000 or so, actually $950, and I show you here. Okay, so $950 that are considered living expenses. So their living expenses are higher than a lot of people, and a lot of other expenses. Usually it's about 50-50, or hopefully your living expenses are actually less than your debts, but that's not always the case, okay? So they have something that they're doing that costs them some more money. So it's very advantageous for them at this point to get their debts worked down. So let's first talk about the lines of credit that we're going to use today. Again, the second lien home equity line of credit, the first lien home equity line of credit, and we are going to use a credit card here. And the credit card that we are going to use as our debt destroyer is going to start off with the Discover. All right, let's talk about the second lien home equity. This is the home equity line of credit that I talked to you guys most about. Okay, so it's having your mortgage and then using the equity that is in your home to then get a line backed by it and work it down. So it's like having a big credit card with your house attached to it. That's kind of like a way you could look at it, okay? The difference is, though, those lines of credit are attached to your checking account. So you can run all of your expenses out of your checking account, and it pulls money from that line of credit to cover the expenses, which you want to do because you're going to run your expenses right out of that line of credit that you're going to use. Okay, so the home value at this point is $210,000. That is what the SEV is, the state equalized value. Sorry, I don't mean to use jargon here or lingo. But anyway, so we know that. Now, their mortgage right now stands at $91,400. That home equity loan that they have is for $32,611. Okay, so they have two of those that are making up their entire mortgage at this point. So I think that's what, 120. I didn't add that up for you guys. Let me do that though. Let me put that in here. Okay, so our mortgage debt, let's say, is 91.4. We'll add the 32,611. So that's 124.11. Okay, so that's the total. I'm going to write that down here. So 124.11. Okay, is the total for these two here. All right, let's get into it. So we've got a second lien that we're going to use. We're using that home equity line of credit. If we take our debts, right, that first HELOC here, and we're going to roll that because we're not leaving that baby out there, not at this payment when we want this payment to come back to us. We need that payment. So we're going to roll that in. So we have the 32,611. We're going to add the 8320. Okay. We're going to add the 6210 right here. And then we're also going to add the 5840. So we're going to add all of these debts here plus our home equity loan. Okay. So we're adding those together. So that totals $52,981, okay? So they're going to then start working this down, right? So they're going to put their income in, which is the $64.95, all right? And that immediately drops them to $46,486. But we have expenses, don't we? And those expenses are going to be coming out of that line of credit. So the expenses come in and hit that account. So we're at $48.53 with once those expenses come in.
So 48.53. Now, how did I get this number when we started off with 63.40? Well, our expenses are minus these here. We're subtracting the 693, we're subtracting the 439, we're subtracting the 180 and the 175, which leaves us with our expenses at 48.53. Okay. All right. So, and that those are the ones that are coming back to us, though, remember, because once we enveloped these, got rid of these, then we don't have those payments anymore. Okay. So those are not expenses to us. So we drop it to 46,486. Then again, our expenses come out, our interest comes out, and our interest is based on this because this line of credit they could get for 10.25%. Okay, so 10.25%. This is a factor of that. And so I'm going to go over and show you how we calculate that. All right, remember, lines of credit are done on an average daily balance. So we need the average daily balance in order to figure out what that interest rate will be monthly, and that will drop month over month over month, okay? So once the interest comes in, we are at 51,763. Is the 51,763 greater or less than the 52,981? Well, it's less than, so we are running in the right direction, okay? Now, month number 2 comes in. We start off with a 51,763. You subtract out the 64,95, which is your income, remember, and it drops it to 45,268. Then you add in your expenses, you add in your interest, and as you can see, our interest has dropped now, hasn't it? So it's dropped. And then you're down to 50,535, but then our income comes back in and it works it back up, okay? So when we do this, right, how do we calculate the interest? All right, here's how you calculate the interest when you run Velocity Banking Strategies. You are going to take your starting amount, which is the 52,981. Okay, so we have to take an average. We're taking an average of our high balance plus our low balance. Okay, you're getting the average by dividing by 2 because there's only 2 that you're working with. So you're going to divide that by 2. So I'm going to take my 52,981. I'm going to add to it my 46,486, which equals 99,467. I divide that by 2. It gives me 49,733. Then I take that and I multiply it by my interest rate, okay? And then that gives me $5,097, but that's for a whole year. So I'm dividing it by 12 to get my 424. Okay, so that's how I'm getting this number. And because we're dropping our balance by putting in our income, right? These are going to, your interest is going to go down every single month, provided you don't have a month that you're going backwards, which means that you've had added expenses you weren't anticipating. And so sometimes that happens, right? We know that. Okay. So when we do it this way, okay, and they take care of those debts, here's what it looks like. All right. So it will take them to run it with that second lien home equity. Okay. It will take them 34 months. They will spend $8,024 in interest. The traditional banking method, if they were to have left it as is and continued to make their payments as is, for these debts involved, again, this plus this plus this plus this equals $16,702, okay? That's the debt interest they would have paid if they had run it traditionally. But we're not going to do that, right? We're going to run it through our home equity line of credit, which means we're only spending $8,024 to get it all done and wrapped up. And what time frame are we doing it? 34 months. So it's less than, what is that, less than 3 years, I think? 12, yeah. So it's less than 3 years, right? So this is a viable option, right? For those of you that can use the equity in your home, this is one way to do it. Now let's talk about that first lien home equity. So the first lien home equity, again, is using an equity line of credit, okay, as your mortgage. So basically you're buying out your mortgage with a first lien home equity product, meaning that it's going to be a line of credit. So you take your mortgage, you buy it out, and you now have a line of credit for the total amount of your mortgage at an interest rate of whatever the first lien home equities are. And in this case, they were getting it for 8.9, okay? So what debts did we then roll in? Well, we rolled in everything that we could, okay? So we rolled in to that we have our mortgage, we have our home equity loan, and we have these all inside of our new mortgage, okay, our new mortgage, which is a first lien home equity. So if we do this, right, we take all of our income and we put our income in, it drops us to 137,886. Then our expenses have to come out. Now our expenses are 4222, right? Because we are now taking this off, we're taking this off, and this off. All right. Now we certainly have a payment, right? Just on the home equity line of credit, the second lien, the first lien has a payment as well. But we know that when we run our income into this line of credit, that satisfies the payment. That income becomes the payment. So you don't owe anything else, right? You just owe what you've put in. So when you put in that payment, you've satisfied the payment, and that then works down the debt. Okay, that's why velocity banking is so amazing, because when you do that, this is what happens. All right. So we've put in our income, it drops us to 137,886. We have our expenses, we're running out of it. Then we have our interest, which is 1,046. Okay, so this is our interest. Now it looks like a lot of interest. And to begin with, it is. But remember, that's going to drop really fast because you're putting all your income into your mortgage at this point. So then as you put those in, it comes up to 143, 154. You put in your income again, your entire income, drops us to 136, 659. You're going to add in your expenses and your interest again. You can see 1046, now 1037. Over here, we're at, oh, sorry, this is the credit card. Oof, I thought I went another row. I did not. So I stopped it here for the sake of, number one, time, and number two, board space. So now you have I'm showing 2 months. We're going to do it over and over and over again. Okay. Now we are in this case taking care of our mortgage, paying off our mortgage faster, plus all those debts. So in this case, rolling it all together makes perfect sense. And here is why. When I reveal this to you, we now know that it takes 83 months, which is 6.9 years. Okay. 6.9 years. They spend $48,631 in interest for all of those debts, plus their mortgage, plus their line of credit, or their loan that they had. So all of it together, it takes them 6.9 years. Now, they've already been in this 8 years. Okay, they've been in it 8 years. So we're adding on another 6, aren't we? Okay, or 7. Let's say 7. Here, they have 22 years left on that mortgage. There's still left to pay $92,640. You tell me which one makes more sense at the end of the day, right? So look at that. $48,631 to take care of all of their debt in 7 years, less than 7 years, okay? That is the first lien home equity. And yes, you can get those. They are available out there, and they're amazing when you run them the right way, okay? Now, let's take a look at the last option, which many of you have this as your only option. And guess what? That's what Dan and I started with, was the credit card strategy, because we didn't think we had any other options. So we started it this way, all right? And we took care of our debts with using a credit card to begin with. So here's what we have. We are going to take, and Discover is going to be our debt destroyer, okay? So our debt destroyer is our Discover card. 8320 is what we're putting into that. So we're going to put in 8320 plus the 6210. Okay, so we start with those two. Now, what I should have told you and forgot, and I will put it in here, my limit is 15K here. My limit is 20K here. Okay, I can't fit them all into the city. That doesn't work. Right? It doesn't. 8. Yeah, it doesn't quite work. So we can't do that. So what I decided was, if we start with the Discover card and we put these two together, remember our biggest payments, because we want to get those back to us. Okay. So that's why we're doing it that way. So now what we have to do is, remember, those credit cards are run a little bit different, right? Because you have to work with your available income and your chargeable expenses. Everything else that is not chargeable, you can't put that into your credit card. So you have to hold those out into your checking account. Okay. So that stays in your checking account to be paid that way. Things you cannot pay through a credit card are other credit cards, other loans. Okay. Those are gone right then. You can't pay those. In their case, they have this $950 that thing that they spend their money on, right? Which I won't get into that, but that is something that they can't pay on a credit card either. So they have to hold that out. So we're holding that out of our available income. We're also holding it out of our chargeable expenses because it is not something that they can charge. So available income, we start with our income, the $64.95. You subtract off these, the mortgage and the loan, $13.24. So that's what this is. You subtract off that payment that they make that they can't charge, the $950, okay, out of their living expenses, the $950. And then you're going to subtract off the $175 because we didn't put this card into our Discover and our car. We didn't put them in there, okay? So they're not in. So we have to leave this $175 out of the income. It has to stay in my checking account to be paid that way, all right? And so my new available income is $4,046. Chargeable expenses, let's work on that. Chargeable expenses here. We know that our total expenses are $63.40. We subtract out our mortgage and our loan because we can't pay those through a credit card. We can't pay the $950 through the credit card either. We can't pay $175 through the credit card. We can't pay the $439, and we can't pay the $180 because they are still non-chargeable expenses. They don't just disappear. So the non-chargeables have to be accounted for somewhere. And so so that's why we have them all in here, okay? It's minus the living expenses, right? Except we do have the one in there that we can't charge. So this now becomes my new chargeable expenses, which is $32.72, okay? So that's what you're seeing right here. So step one, I've taken my two debts, right? Because we know Discover, we're using Discover as our debt destroyer. So we take this and add the car payment to it. So we're getting $14,530. But there is a 4% convenience check fee, okay? Because what we're doing is we're going to write ourselves a check for the $14,530, and we're going to put it into our account. We're going to pay these things off, okay? That's really what that looks like, okay? So to do that, to pay off the car this way, right? Well, okay, so it's not a total of $14,530. It's actually the $83.20. So $83.20 is what we're bringing over. So the $83.20 is what we're going to write a check to ourselves for and then pay off the car. That's how we're going to do it. So at 4% of $83.20, okay, is $333. So that has to get added to our balance because that's what they're charging us to use it this way, to bring those balances over. Now, it wasn't a 0% offer. It was just to bring the balances onto that card. So it's going to run at the 27%, okay? Lots of times you guys get deals. You'll get, maybe it'll be it'll be 1.99% to bring money over, or it could be 0% to bring monies over. It really just depends on what offer you have out there, okay? If there's no offer and they're just letting you bring balances, okay, fine. It's going to be at the 27, plus they're going to get their 4% for the balance transfer, okay? Now, so we're starting now at $14,863. We bring our income in, the available income, remember, which is $40.46. Okay, so that comes in, drops us to $10,817. Then we have our chargeable expenses that come in, the $32.72 right here, $32.72, plus our interest of $288. So the interest at the 27%, which is, this is 27. Okay, at 27% for the Discover, all right, is $288. Again, you calculate it just like I calculated over here for you. It's the same way. Your high plus your low, divide it by 2. You multiply that by your interest rate. That gives you the year. Divide that by 12, breaks it down to your month, okay? So now we're at $14,377. $14,377, is it greater or less than the $14,863? It's less than. Our plan is working. Month 2, $40.46 drops us to $10,331. Income, or the expenses come out, the interest comes out, drops us to $14,377. Now, something happens when we're done here, right? Okay, so this at 19 months, so we're going to let this run down to 19 months to 0. Okay, so we let it run down to 0. Then what happens is we're going to then take care of Citi at that point. Okay, so at 19 months, we're going to take care of Citi. Citi will become our debt destroyer. We're going to move it all over to the Citi card because it has less interest rate. But here's the thing. After 19 months, our balance from Citi is 4510. Okay, and we start with that. Hold on one second. 4510, we start with that. Okay, so we start with the 4510. We bring in our income, our available income, which is 4221 at this point because, right, we have more income because we're adding back in this 175. So you take your 4046, you add back in your 175, that's the income now. So your income then is 4221. So when you subtract these, you only have $289, right? That's all that's left there. But then you're running your expenses, okay? And you've got your interest rate. So we're at 3608. Well, guess what? After that, there's no interest because your card is now low enough that you're paying the balance off every single month. So there is no interest when you do that. But you have to finish running out the expenses, right? So you're pulling the expenses out of it. After that, you're pulling them back to your checking account once you're done with the card, okay? So you're running that down a little bit longer, but it doesn't have any interest attached to it. So that means that the 1 month that it takes you to do this, you're spending $47 in interest. Your total monthly interest after 20 months is, actually it's not that because I have to add in the interest that I've spent on my card. So hold on, that is $53.92. Sorry guys. So this should be $53.92. So $53.92. And again, that is because what I had done was I had taken the $33.50 and added the 47, but I was forgetting that this ran for 19 months at an interest rate, okay? Or and you spent interest on it. So that total is $53.92, okay? So again, there are many different ways you can work velocity banking, many ways. You guys don't have to stick or pick just one. You can pick whatever is most advantageous to you or what is the simplest thing for you to do. If some of this is overwhelming, do what's simple. You start with one card, okay? You can start with one card if you want to until you get the hang of it. And then you can do multiple cards maybe. Maybe that's the strategy you want to pick. If you're maxed out on everything, sometimes running multiple cards makes sense because you can't roll anything in. So you're getting back 2 payments, okay, by doing a multiple card strategy. But that's the only time it makes sense. Usually if you have a little bit of room, take one card, hammer that one first, and work it down from there. I hope you guys understand how incredible velocity banking is just by watching these videos. I hope that you try it. I hope that you really look at getting into all of this. We have software that is about ready to launch for you, and I'm so excited to bring that to you guys. So as soon as that's ready, I will be making sure I let all of you know. But in the meantime, get worksheets from us, work down. Remember, organize, identify, implement. Organize all your debts first. We have those worksheets for you. They are fee-free. You guys email us, we will send those to you. If you want a coaching plan, we will absolutely build a coaching plan for you. And we do a Zoom call with you for that and hand you the plan and show you how to work that down. That's another thing that we do for our students. So again, you can find us at info@paydowndebtsolutions.com. Again, I'm Jen, and I hope you've learned something today. I will see you in the next video, unless it's Dan. Have a great day. See ya.